Hello and welcome to Movie Buffs, a show where the action is the juice and where we live our lives a quarter mile at a time. I'm your host, Cisco from Misfit Minded. You can follow me on all the socials at Misfit_Minded and my website, misfitminded.com.
And I'm your other host, Shani B. You can find me on all the socials at It's Me, Shani B.
Each week we take the red pill and use our certain set of skills to break down the best action films of all time. Today we're talking about the 2014 film, Edge of Tomorrow.
I die within 5 minutes of landing on that beach. The invasion failed. We lose everything. Now I live the same day over and over.
You have to die until you change the outcome.
They know we're coming! Finish it!
Edge of Tomorrow, rated PG-13, starts June 6th.
If you haven't seen it, it's also known as Live, Die, Repeat. They couldn't decide a title, so it's got like two names. It's very weird. Any preference before we get started? What title you prefer? Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow?
I guess I don't have a huge pref, but I do like the idea of Live, Die, Repeat. It's so catchy, so it works both
I
as
have
a
no
tagline
idea.
and a title.
Yeah, I have no idea what happened. This is my just like random theory of what might have happened. Is that they kept using Live, Die, Repeat in the marketing, and people were like really going for that, and they're like, let's just call it Live, Die, Repeat. And then but then because it was like such a fourth quarter decision, it ended up like harming the movie by doing that.
Confusing audiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know.
It sounds like one of those studio issues where they were not working together appropriately, which I feel like happened a lot in this like window of movies. Like, the 2010s is like a weird time for movies.
Yeah, I think if I had to choose, I think Live, Die, Repeat's better. I think it's like simpler, gets everything across. Edge of Tomorrow kind of sounds like just a generic action thriller.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it sounds like the
be
studio
anything.
was like, oh, let's use that.
Yeah. So I don't know, but so there's some confusion there even to this day. So if you haven't seen it, one of those titles about a future war with aliens where a soldier, played by Tom Cruise, given the power to repeat the same day and battle every time he dies. And then in order to save the world, he has to use his power to uncover the enemy's secrets and then defeat the enemy and win the war. So to get this bullet train started, take listeners back 10 years ago, June 6th, 2014. It was made for $178 million, grossed a total of $377 million. Is that globally, do you know? That
I'm
seems like
not sure that could be domestic. I can't confirm off the dome right now.
okay. It opened alongside Fault in Our Stars, which was the
Oh,
first
snap.
place in the box office. I guess America just needed a cry or something.
They were looking for some love story.
X-Men Days of Future Past at number 4, another movie that deals with time travel.
Yes.
Seth MacFarlane's A Million Ways to Die in the West at number 5, Godzilla at number 6, and Neighbors at number 7. So quite
Still a collection of different types of movies available, like I think it's important to always look back, like even at this time when movies are like starting to get a little shallower or something as it feels, this is still quite like you still have a lot of choice when you go to the movies.
and still not like all dominated by IP. Like, Seth MacFarlane, that A Million Ways to Die in the West, it's like not great, but like I just like that he's just like I just want to do a spoof on westerns, and they
Yep.
let him do it.
Yes. And I
Um,
love Neighbors. That's a great
Neighbors,
movie.
Neighbors is really good actually. And the rest, yeah, Godzilla. We've seen so many of those since then.
Right.
X-Men, they're
Got a
still
lot of those.
putting Hugh Jackman in the suit and making him just turn into a steroid machine every every year.
Yeah, and maybe we'll start to see a resurgence of more movies like The Fault in Our Stars, but I guess like it did finish strong at the box office its opening weekend, so
See, I'm even okay with
people are
that,
still
like,
in.
because, IP that's like, books or
A
whatever.
book.
You know what I mean? Like, because that was
Right.
what the Blake Lively thing was based on a book series, I
Right.
believe. So,
That's right.
that hasn't truly gone away either, and we're not gonna get into the Blake Lively,
Good, because I don't
drama
want
because
to.
because that's a whole other can of worms. So let's just get into our first segment called "Getting the Band Back Together."
I don't have friends. I got family.
In this segment, we'll take a slow motion look at the filmmaking choices that went into the film and the ass kickers responsible. So, to your point just a minute ago, this movie is technically based on a novel. The screenplay was written by Christopher McQuarrie, Jez and John Henry Butterworth. So, what I can only assume are like the brothers Butterworth, which is what I have been calling them since I
Jez, what a name.
discovered. I
Jez.
know, right? I really hope that that one of them's not a gal, and I've lost it. But McQuarrie being here as a writer is so interesting because we know that like him and Cruise will go on to have such a tight ass partnership, or maybe it had already started at this time and it was continuing. And it was directed by Doug Liman, who did The Roadhouse earlier this year, which we covered, Swingers,
Yep.
of course,
Check
The
that
Bourne
out.
Identity.
Yep. And we did an episode on that.
Yep.
Which again, another one of my favorite episodes, I think. Go check that one
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, and Doug Liman is like a pretty good director. I feel like when I was looking at his IMDb, I was like, this guy is always working and he has a lot of variety. And so while he may not be like an auteur, he is still really talented, very skilled at what he does.
Yeah, I think people like when it's like an auteur that works in like different genres and stuff, it's like harder for them to like think of them as an
Totally.
auteur.
Mm-hmm.
But he's still like, really well respected whenever he does one of these action genres. Like if there was a case for him, I would say like an action auteur, absolutely. Like
Yes.
and then he did like The Instigators. That's like his new movie, which I haven't
I
seen.
just caught it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Okay, but that's not even an action, is it? It's
Well, it
more
is, but
okay.
it's an amazing genre combo because it's sort of like comedy action, but action first for sure with
Yeah.
like comedy
Okay.
commentary. It was a lot of fun and a movie where I was like, I guess this could have just been another action movie, but it's elevated. Like the performances and the story elevated into something even funner, even more fun.
And that went straight to streaming too.
Yeah, Apple.
Okay.
Maybe it's in theaters because I know Apple like low key does still release things in theaters, but it is available streaming now.
Well, see that I don't know. That's like a whole other conversation too. I feel like Apple does a horrible job marketing their stuff. Like,
I'm not
and
sure they do a good
I
job
didn't even know
either.
it was an
Yeah,
action movie. Like, that's a horrible. I should know these things.
that's
Um,
true.
but yeah, Doug Liman. I think he's a great filmmaker when it comes to action, and there's a lot of cool like behind the scenes stuff on the Blu-ray. He again, we're still in this kind of time 10 years ago where people are trying to do as much practically as they can. I know that sounds weird, but like with a sci-fi alien movie, but
Yeah,
like he actually put these actors in those
suits.
gigantic suits and had them
Yep,
like walk around and like I don't remember how much they had to have like 100+ pounds easily. Like
for sure. They're clunky.
yeah, so like they all, you can look up there's all these interviews with them saying like how long it took them to just get used to walking around in those things because they're so ginormous and but I love it. I love the use of those things. Like
Yep.
that's what kind of sets it apart from your average actioner. I love it's an adaptation of like a manga like graphic novel or whatever, so I
Okay.
think there's still a lot of that like style in it.
Yeah.
It didn't
Yeah.
like sacrifice totally the source material,
No.
even though I'm sure there's like a lot of changes that they made um in adapting it. And it's got the Groundhog Day hook to it, where it's living the same day over and over again. You're learning from your mistakes. And so there's inherently like a lot of fun you can have with that, with
It's
like
true.
the repetition. It's like very video game mechanic,
Yep.
like just in the construction of it. But like, and then you fill in all these like character actors around it to kind of to like
Yes.
add to that world, that real world building into it. So I think it's yeah, it's one that I go back to, even though again it might seem kind of weird because there's so much repetition in it already that makes it like easy to remember like certain lines and certain scenes. But Tom Cruise, we talked about like just his career too a lot, and so just to see him in this kind of like zany
Yes.
action movie sometimes, but then it does balance out like the drama at the same time like really well when it needs to.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's like a really fun ride, and the science fiction of it all might put off a certain segment of the population, but I don't think it needs to necessarily. Like, it's got a lot of action, a lot of drama, commentary on war, things like
Yes.
that I think makes it worth watching. What about you?
It's really creative. Yeah, yeah. This movie is a lot of fun. I love returning to it. It reminds me of a much more grounded Starship Troopers,
Mm,
which is another favorite of mine, a Verhoeven gem.
yep.
I really like how they kind of use, some real world stuff, like using real news outlets and footage, like
Yeah, the
really trying to
opening
ground
montage.
this. Exactly.
Hmm.
And throughout, like they're really trying their best to ground it, even though, the enemy that we're fighting is like a different kind of alien than we've seen before. And I actually really like that because it's harder to make it like it's just this war thing or it's just like bugs or something. It's like, it's really hard to even get your eyes on these things, which is so cool.
Hmm.
I really like the production design. The base looks so cool. The fallen cities look dope. The suits, like you mentioned, really feel like they could be in the Wayland Yutani universe, so I'm just, like,
Mm.
about all of it,
Have you seen
and
Alien yet? The new one? I just
I
I
have,
just watched it
yes.
yesterday too.
Oh, great time, great time.
Yeah.
And the filmmaking during the initial beach drop is so good because it kind of has to be. Like, I think to your point about it being a movie that repeats the same day, it still finds a way to be fresh. It finds a way to give me something new each time it goes into the same scenario. And it is very clever and creative about making sure that that's not too boring and not too monotonous because there's, little details change and sometimes they're for humor, sometimes they're for drama, and I do really like how they kind of play with all of that and how they're able to accomplish all of that.
Yeah, I think it's like really smart because again, you can just knowing that feel like, oh well, how do they make it like interesting even though you're seeing the same scene like multiple times or whatever. And
Right.
I think like the blocking is different, in certain instances the line readings are kind of different. Like,
Yep.
they do enough to where it doesn't get tiring. And then yeah, that first beach sequence is just like you're literally dropped in with Tom Cruise into this like nightmarish war scene where
Yeah.
it's like
Yes.
this guy doesn't even have his safety off of his weapons and he's just dropped into like where there it's just a massacre,
Yes.
all around. And so I love how they capture that with like the ship exploding and you're still inside the ship and he's
Mhm.
like debating like when should I drop or not, you know?
Yes. Yeah, the
Uh,
chaos of it is really mirrored in the filmmaking, and that made me think of when we were talking about the Bourne Supremacy and how sometimes when the filmmaking is a little too chaotic and you can't quite see what's going on, it does a disservice to the
mhm.
story,
Which
and
is
I do
not by
feel
Doug
like
Liman, so like that's interesting because he
that's
did the
correct.
first
He
one,
Yeah.
not the sequels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here I do feel like it was like perfect. It was chaotic in a way where I wasn't gonna miss anything. I could really understand, what it must be like to be in this place because of that chaos.
I think that's such an important piece of it, because you need to understand the geography of stuff so you're not just getting lost in it because you're gonna return to it so many times. So,
That's
like,
right.
you get these, like, beats that are, like, very intentional and they linger on them, maybe, like, a little too long than other action movies would, but it's, like, very intentional. Like, where
Yep.
it's, like, the big dude who gets crushed by the ship, you get that shot where like Tom Cruise is like, "Oh my god," like looking at that, like I barely survived that crash. And
Yes.
then that happens again and again, and then like him trying to save that guy, and then being like, "Yeah, there's no way like I can do this every single time." Like he has to make these kind of decisions
Yes.
based on the scene. And like, yeah, the first time he meets Rita Vertasky, on the battlefield, and like she dies too. And it's just, yeah, it's like it's very this like helpless feeling of like anything I do, it's not gonna matter because there's gonna be so much carnage anyway.
It's kind of interesting because I was thinking a lot about how when people are going through the stages of grief, this is because I've
No,
been
yeah,
working too
I
much,
thought of it
but
too. I thought of that too. Yes, absolutely.
you replay these days in your life, you bargain about what you could have done different to change the outcome of something that you cannot change the outcome of. And this movie like really finds a way to kind of talk about that without like hitting it right on the nose and being like, this is a film about grief. But like this is really about how I think a lot of people wish they would have the power to relive days, especially important days where something really bad or extreme happens in their life. And that's what makes this movie so interesting to me.
No, like, that's not even, like, us reading into it because I absolutely thought of that, like, because that's in Groundhog Day too, like, where he goes through, like, he tries to kill himself, "Nothing I do matters," that type of
Yep,
thing, and, like, that with PTSD, like, you're reliving the same
that's right.
extreme moments over and over again, like, they absolutely hit on that,
Yeah, the
um
way he wakes up from these like it's a dream every time, "Ugh!"
Yeah. But even, like, there's, like, a point where he kind of, like, stops trying to meet with Emily Blunt, because he's just like, "I'm not gonna put her in danger," or whatever. Like, he makes that kind of executive decision,
Yep.
or, like, "I'm gonna try it a different way," because, yeah, you would go insane, like, just trying to do the same thing over and over again, and, like, that's the video game part of it too, where it's like, video games should be fun, like,
Yeah.
you die over and over again, and you don't just want to do the same things. You want to crack it a different way and learn from it. But like if it's that's too hard of a hurdle to reach, then it stops becoming fun at a certain
Yes.
point. If you
Yeah.
can't, look up. We're lucky now that you can just look up YouTube tutorials of
You
people
can.
beating the game because there's been times where I'm just like I've wasted an hour trying to beat this and I can't. So let me just oh my the worst one recently and it was so infuriating because it wasn't even like an action thing. It was like
Mm,
some random mission in the Spider-Man 2, the latest
okay.
Spider-Man game, and it's like take a snapshot of this video game club on campus type of thing, because you're a photographer. And
Right.
I'm flying around this campus. I can't find this fucking video game club anywhere to save my life. There's no clues. And then when I finally looked it up on YouTube, it's like they're inside of a building and you have to take it through a window. How would I know that? You know what I mean? Like
Oh my
how and
gosh.
like I looked at all the comments, people were like, this was so frustrating. Like, how would
Right.
we know that? And so there is that where he, like I love some of those early scenes where he's like trying to like roll under the car and like fucking
Yes.
dies. And Tom Cruise has a great scream anyway. Like he could easily do a horror movie, I think, because he just has one of those like
Yeah, yeah, he his ability to yeah, like that is actually a perfect segue to move into our next segment, because, his performance in this, just like we were talking about his performance last week, this is another really unique one in his repertoire, and it is really exciting to talk about. So, that brings us to our next segment called Choose Your Fighter.
Welcome to the party, pal.
where we take a look at all of the bros and babes that flex their acting muscles and sometimes the real muscles for us movie buffs. The film stars Emily Blunt, Bill Paxton, and Tom Cruise.
Yes. And yeah, I this is an example of when Tom Cruise is playing a reluctant hero, which is V rare, right?
Mhm.
He's usually like totally equipped, cool, got all the skills, ready to go. And it's just so funny how much he's like, I'm just really here to schmooze. All I
Yeah.
want to do is schmooze. He's truly scared when that first time on the beach, like I'm
Yeah,
just so not used to seeing him
I
scared that it was
know.
like so fun to be like, wow, he is nailing the fear that would probably exist for a person who's like, I'm in the military or whatever. I might have done, the baseline boot camp or whatnot, but like I haven't been near guns. I haven't been near these rough dudes. I've been like on TV,
Yeah.
like just a unique kind of perspective to be reminded that like the military has all kinds of jobs, and he really captures the nuance of this. Because we are used to seeing him super confident and like ready to go, and I love the arc of his character, sort of starting in a place of like fear and reluctance and moving to a place of like complete confidence where like by the end of this movie, it's like there's the Tom Cruise we know.
Yeah. No, I think yeah, he's really underrated as a dramatic actor, honestly. Like I don't get it. Like he should absolutely have an Oscar at this point.
It's true.
And like we talked about Collateral last week and I was listening to a podcast on it and they were talking about like if the roles were reversed in that, I think Tom Cruise could absolutely play Jamie Foxx's part as the cab driver. You know what I
For
mean?
sure.
Like he has both modes. Like that's what great actors can do. Just
Yes.
they get pigeonholed after a while. If they're
Right.
playing, he's stuck pretty hard in the action genre as of late, which
Yeah.
but I don't think he gets enough credit even within those like Mission Impossibles where, like in the last one, a lot of the core idea of it was like, I don't want to get my friends hurt, like
Yes.
by keeping like and the villains target that, because he cares so much. And same thing with Top Gun Maverick. He's like, I once was this like gung ho, do anything freely young gun. And now I'm kind of old and this is like completely new to me. And they run
Yeah,
things different. Like they build that into like all these action movies. It's not just, okay, it's Tom Cruise in an action movie. It's automatically going to work. Like the writing and Tom Cruise performance, like they do so much heavy lifting that, if you want to know why some action movies don't like feel generic and don't work, it's because they don't have Tom Cruise. They don't have
that's right.
that smart writing underneath it.
It's true. It's true. His drama, his drama,
His
his
drama.
drama. Like he did so much of that at the top of his career, right? Like he came into the industry doing drama, like being able to do this depth, and he just like got sort of lucky with the missions, and then that became what I think people think of him as. But it's true, like he has something that not all big action stars have, because we talk a lot about action, of course, and not all big action stars like really have the depth that he's
Hmm.
able to bring, the grounding that he can bring. Because like again, this movie is a lot is happening, but I still don't feel confused. He's able to keep me on course with the story, and I think that's a unique thing that he can do as an actor too, is make a lot of sense out of something that's like very hard to believe.
Yeah, and it's like because he doesn't have a lot of people to talk to, he's going on this kind of journey by himself. You need someone that can do that. Where like you
Yep.
see how scared he is when he first comes in, you see how confused he is when he relives the same day, and he's like knowing all these lines that people are saying before they say it, and then slowly, even though he has the advantage with the knowledge, I did not train in combat. Now I need to train to be an action hero, and so you see him that whole progression. And then at the end, even an emotional progression of like, I don't want to hurt other people. Like maybe I can do this without hurting, which is unrealistic in war. But that's
Right.
the humanity that he brings to it, and the script brought to it.
Yeah, these are all the layers that he has to basically experience and go through. And that's what's so interesting about this too, is that like, when we finally get to know Emily Blunt more and more, as he realizes that she has done what he's done, she too has had to live a day over and over again. She too has had, like a kind of companion who she was trying to conquer this stuff with, but who she had to watch die over and
Yep.
over again. And it's just like an interesting thing
And
to
that's not hit
for
over the
them.
nose. It's like a single line of dialogue, right? Where
That's
it's
right.
like, don't talk about him. Don't say
Right.
his
Yeah.
name
You're
again.
sort of like, why is this woman so closed off? And it's kind of like we were talking about, like, you'd go crazy and you would be closed off if nobody believed you or understood you or could value, like, the very unique and harrowing experience you've had. And so I kind of love that they're equals in that way, that they have had a similar experience. So, it's not about really convincing each other in more so than just sort of like, I have this thing. It's like a complete understanding that exists between the two of them as they try to do this together.
I think it's like, yeah, I think even reading that like with a wartime lens too, like that's probably why soldiers can, bond so much, because it's like you were there too.
Yes.
You understand
You know
what
something
this
I
is
know.
like more than
Mhm.
the average person can. So
Right.
like,
They can maybe imagine it, but you have
yeah.
truly experienced it.
Hmm. So yeah, and let's talk about Emily Blunt, because I feel like
Please.
this was just such a left turn, for her, like in a way that for Tom Cruise we'd seen it already, in a bunch of movies, and
Yep.
kills it. Like you have to believe that she's like this
The baddest.
absolute killer that has the respect of everyone because she killed over 100 aliens in a day or whatever, in
Baller.
the battle of Verdun or whatever, and you absolutely believe it. Like her physicality, just
Yes.
her
Her
toughness.
tone.
She's the one that has she's the action star of this movie for majority of the movie, like
Yes.
75% of it. And she's having to show Tom Cruise the ropes. And I think that was such a smart decision.
Yeah.
And she, you absolutely believe it. The
Yeah,
first time
this
you
is
watch
such a
this.
different character for her to play too, because she can usually play incredibly likable, incredibly connective. And there's something so interesting about her hesitance and her closed offness that she utilizes here as part of her like emotional depth. And it is really grounding and believable because, like Tom Cruise is having to learn the same hard lesson in a way.
Hmm.
And, we get to have a taste of that, but it doesn't feel like she's just like, completely closed off. It feels like no, this bitch has seen some stuff. She has
Hmm.
experienced some stuff, and she has no room for bullshit. She's just got to win this. And I kind of love that it always comes back to that. Like anytime he wants to be like, are you sure? Like, you don't have to risk your life. She's like, no way, man. I'm a soldier. So, like, I'm
Yes.
willing to die for this because I have to see it through.
Yeah, I mean, like, her character introduction, I think, is, like, one of the best modern character introductions where she's, like, stretching in the middle of, this training field,
Yes.
It's, like, what's just so crazy because, Tom Cruise, you see him the first time and he's, like, so on edge and she just looks so at peace there,
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
middle in the middle of it.
Yep. She's like, I'm not scared, really. I just want this so badly.
And it just has, like, all these emotions that we're talking about just in her face and the way she, like, lifts up when she meets him. Like, there's, like, this, intensity, there's sexiness, there's, like, this vulnerability hidden underneath. Like, it's just
Hmm.
everything that you want in your, lead action hero.
And, she's another unique person who doesn't have to force or play at chemistry with Tom Cruise. Like they just vibe, and I feel like
Mhm,
that's a unique kind of thing where it's like harder for women to kind of vibe with him. We've started to see them be better at vibing with him, like on the equal playing field in the later missions. But like,
mhm.
them having like a chemistry that is mostly about because of their equity, not because she's just like the hot girl and he's the hot guy or something. And I kind of love that she sort of has that ability with a lot of like male action stars. It's like something she is low key really good at.
Yeah, we talked about this that like Tom Cruise and there's other action stars too that like they're as for as good as an action as they are, they're not good at the chemistry piece of it. And so it takes like a really good lead to really bring that out of them. And
Hmm.
like Tom Cruise, absolutely I would put him in that category where like,
Yeah.
his like Top Gun romantic stuff is just takes me out every time. It does not work for and and when you have someone like Jennifer Connelly in Maverick taking the lead of that relationship,
Bringing it
all right,
back.
I'm in. I
Yes.
absolutely believe that. You have someone like Haley Atwell in the new Mission Impossible taking
Yep.
charge of that piece of it. Like, there's
Right.
just something about that, like, it's not to say that like one's the alpha and one's the omega or something
But
like
it's
that,
true.
but
It's like, I
there's
can
just different
remember.
different strengths, different strengths.
Yes, yes. I can remember like from the, Michelle Monaghan one too, just being like,
Yeah,
"Oh
part
wow, I
3.
actually finally believe that he's like in love with this woman."
Yeah.
And that she's in love with him too. And at the same with like Bex Ferguson, like I do feel like they have started to find the right women for him to bounce off of in a way where like I think if there's an equity, there's so much more of a connection. When they want him to be like a Bond
I was just
Casanova or
gonna say
something, it's just not there.
that's the Bond template where it's just like, we don't
Mhm.
really care about this piece of it, but
Yeah,
we're
these are
just
just pretty girls. So
yeah.
sorry.
But
I
the Bond
mean,
girl, that's what they were asked to do, and so, now because we've had so many movies of the Bond movies like that, we are kind of expecting more now,
that's
honestly,
right. That's
out
right.
of our action movies, and we were just having this debate last night of, Our Majesty's Secret Service, which is the one,
I haven't seen it yet.
it's the one with George Lazenby. He only did one Bond movie and dipped.
Okay.
And, for whatever you think about his portrayal of Bond, that was really the first time when he had an actual relationship with a woman in the Bond movies, and I love that movie for that. It like really brought that for the first time
Mhm.
in Bond, and so yeah, I think yeah, like, and she's
Like the
done it
loves
before with Emily Blunt. I was thinking of like the Jungle Cruise. The Rock is another one. He
exactly.
doesn't
Very
have
good with The
that,
Rock. Mhm.
but she brought that out.
That's true. Yeah, I guess like the love story is not just a trope, like that the studio's like, it's got to be in there so women will see it. Like, if it succeeds, then everybody loves it, like
Yeah.
guys and girls alike. So I do feel like that's, like that's not a central part of the story, but the fact that like they have nobody but each other and that would bring them closer together, that just gets to be an authentic thing that's taking place across the course of the story. And so, even though there is like a kiss that happens, it's sort of like it was earned because
Mhm.
they did spend this time together. They did risk their lives together. They do have this bond.
Yeah, and it's like it's not even it doesn't feel forced. It's more of a friendship, honestly, throughout most of the thing,
Yeah.
which like, there's not a lot of representation with that too of just like guys can be friends with girls and doesn't have to be anything
Yeah.
more than that. So like
Yeah.
I appreciated those like smaller scenes where they're like in the barn and he's like, "Oh, you like 3 sugars in your coffee," and that type of stuff.
Yeah. That's
It
very
was cute.
sweet. Yeah,
Um,
like a deeper kind of building of love than just like, chemistry and sexiness and that's it. Like it's just they're just so hot that of course they want to hook up. It's like
yeah.
actually they like need each other.
Mhm.
The love that is building between them is much more about respect and about safety, basically.
And yeah, like, and that's when that kiss happens, I don't feel like it's cheap because it's like it was more of a like desperation. This is might be the last time I'll see you kind of kiss more than like a romantic type of thing.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like it all works in that way.
agreed.
I think.
Totally, totally.
Um,
Um, and then
and
of course we have to
we
mention our
have to.
main man,
Yep.
doing what he's supposed to be doing, our favorite thing for him to be doing.
This has
Paxton
been the summer
here.
of Bill Paxton for us, man. I love
Yes,
it.
it's true. He must have done a lot of things on the fours. Maybe that was one of his lucky
Mhm.
numbers or something.
Took a
Um,
vacation on the threes and then
and then worked
and then
hard
came
on the
back.
fours. Hell yeah. But he's so great in this, like another great accent, another kitschy kind of character, but perfect because we need him to be the thing that reminds us that even though we're maybe starting to buy in on the repetitiveness, there would still be people who are not. And he's such a
Mhm.
good reminder of like, I don't want to hear you no matter what you say to me.
Yeah, he's so believable as, like, the drill sergeant, with the mustache, and
Yeah, and the
I
like
was
psychotic look in his eyes.
yeah. And just I love the way that he plays with Tom Cruise at the beginning. When he first meet, he doesn't reveal right away that I know that
Yeah,
I've
you're
been
gonna
told
lie
you're
to
a
me.
bullshitter, and he does, like, that great speech, about, like, "Combat is the great redeemer." All men are equal on the battlefield and all these like little things that a drill sergeant would believably be. And I was thinking about him a lot honestly during Alien Romulus because um I thought it was pretty good. I wasn't in love with it, but I thought one of the things that I missed while I was watching it was like, man, like they just don't have a Bill Paxton, and I know that's a high bar, but it's like even in his like role as like this cowardly,
Yep.
army soldier, like he makes you remember that role, like with his performance and
Yes.
the game over man, like he's basically playing the like cowardly Tom Cruise in that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, who wouldn't turn into that faced with a xenomorph? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, there are circumstances. Exactly.
And so I just didn't like. We were talking me and my friend afterwards that just like that was something that all aliens were so good at is like casting these people, and like in this one it just felt like very modern. Let's just
Yeah.
cast young hot people that just kind of blend together,
A
and it's
little
like
bit. Yep.
you
Yep.
know where's the where are the Hurts and where are the
Yeah.
Sigourney Weavers and
Exactly. I was gonna
like
say, like, it's hard to find any character or any actor who can really rival Ripley or Sigourney Weaver, like, as a
yeah.
centerpiece.
And I mean, and that I was thinking of that too, like, when, Emily Blunt was in here too, that, like, that's why we love our female action stars, like, in Terminator 2 or
Yep.
Aliens, like, that is something I wish we would see more of still to this day.
Agreed. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard. Because I do feel like, action stars they started to get more like femme fatale, less like strength based.
Mhm.
And Emily Blunt is so strength based in this. And I love that about it. Like, she
Mhm.
really just looks like buff. And you're like,
Yes.
let's go, like not in like a masculine way that's like problematic or anything like that. Like, she really just sort of looks like, yeah, don't fuck with her. She's strong. She's been working out. She's ready for this.
Absolutely did the Sarah Connor playbook by putting her in that tank and
So smart.
letting her muscles hang out there.
It's important,
Yeah.
right? We kind of needed a Sarah Connor here to fight the machines, right? I
Yeah.
mean, they're not quite machines, they're aliens, but they sort of did feel like machines
Yeah, kinda like they remind me a lot of the Matrix octopus
type
machines or
thing.
whatever, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Let's get into some more of these, like, machine and action parts here with our next segment called The Need for Speed.
Pain don't hurt.
In this segment, we'll do what the Oscars don't do and honor the amazing stuntmen and women for their death-defying work and pick out the punch that knocked us out the most. All right, what are your stunts?
Oh, man, there's there's so many stunts and kills
Yes.
this week, that yeah, this was hard to think of. I will say I did, we always enjoy the vehicular stunts. There's a lot
Yes.
to choose from in here. I'm just gonna lump them all in one. So you got the helicopter at the end. I
Yep.
thought that part packed like a really emotional because that was right before they have their conversation where he's like, "You're going to die. Like I've seen you
Yes.
die a million times.
Yep.
trying to do this. As soon as you start the helicopter, you're going to die. She does it anyway, and she reveals the middle name, and it's just a really great scene. But also, I thought the car stunts when they, you know, it's kind of turned into like a heist scene. They
Yeah.
where they flee from the Brendan Gleeson. We didn't talk about him, but I think he's great too,
Yes.
as like the lieutenant in charge or whatever. And
Yep.
they steal the equipment they need, and Emily Blunt's like just driving, making swerves, and while Tom Cruise is there. So I love that. I love all those just car scenes. Hard to beat that opening battle on the beach.
Of course.
No, that's like the one that stands out just because, they come back to it over and over again. So it's like I feel like they really designed it in a way where it's like we need to make this really hit hard and
Yes.
make it impactful so we can keep returning to this.
Yeah.
But just the chaos of it all, and again, you got the fat guy getting squished, and then there's even when they're drawing the playbook of trying to like you know perfectly draw out that scene, it doesn't work. There's always another alien that like pops out, and
Yep.
but just like him like realizing how to use his gun for the first time. And I mean, the first time that Tom Cruise even like dies in that, it's like, whoa, like you're not used to seeing Tom Cruise die in this way.
Nope.
um and then man, I'm trying to think of, I really like just I guess I'll say like just the stunt work with the suits. Like I thought that like really stood out, not even in like just the training, but like in the scenes where Tom Cruise is on the battlefield and he's like, he's using the jetpack to like slide to the side, and then
Yes.
using one arm to do the machine gun. You got the two on top that like go and explode it. I think probably my favorite instance though was when they were leaving, like kind of in that helicopter segment, and they leave on the car, and there's one that's in the trailer which he told her
Yes.
to disengage with, and then Tom Cruise pops up out of the car like double fisting machine gun, and then you see the ones on top explode like the whole trailer, and I was just
Hell
like,
yeah.
God, this is like, how can you hate this? Like this is so sick.
Yep.
So that was probably like my most impressive like single stunt. I really like that part. What about
Yeah,
you?
yeah. The infusion of the stunts with computers here is like really seamless in my opinion. I feel like it's not, like maybe if we get a 4K restoration of some kind or something, it'll seem, less realistic looking, but I do feel like they do a really good job of like, blowing up that trailer, but I can see the alien kind of coming out of it, the guns and everything. I know that that all can't be real, but it looks so good together.
I mean, the
Um,
CGI holds up for a 10-year-old movie. I think there
exactly.
wasn't really anything, regarding the aliens especially, that I was like, that doesn't look good still. Like they still really look great.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I really like the effect of like when he does kill the first the replicant thing that he's gonna be able to get this power from, the way that it like melts into his face
Yeah.
and they're able to stay on it. Like it's kind of gross, but it's a computer generated effect per se, but it's just so cool looking and he does such a good job being like,
I know.
ah it's like getting him. And I love it.
Yeah.
And I think, like when he's getting tossed around during the montage and on the beach and all kinds of stuff, like I have to imagine that that was a lot of wire work that they were
Oh, for
also
sure. Yeah.
seamlessly tying with the computer. And I just feel like, like usually we see wire work for like a sequence, but I feel like wire work had to be used across this movie because they're dealing with like such powerful entities in these big suits. Like when the guys are like pushing the cars out of the way for them in the end sequence, like they had to do a whole lot of making it seem like we were capable of doing stuff that they had to be doing with effects. So I just really appreciate
Yeah,
the
even in that
seamlessness
in
of it
that car
all.
chase sequence, like the first time they fail, it's because like the guys in the suits are stopping the car with their with their suits. Like,
That's right.
so you believe that they have all this power inside of them.
It's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I just feel like there are, so many stunts here and they're so seamlessly tied together well with whatever computers they needed because you're right, like they did as much as they could practically and then they just let the computers elevate it instead of trying to be like, we're gonna make it look even cooler and realer with computers.
Yeah. No, it's like
Because I
really it's really like hunker down. It's like you see them inside the suit, and you like, it's just like kind of a frame.
so cool.
And they used it kind of around the same time, I want to say, in one of the Call of Duties, which was pretty sick too, like Advanced
Okay.
Warfare. where
Okay.
you had one of these suits and you could jet around, and one of the new things is that you could slide with the jet impact like stuff
That's
from
awesome.
side to side, and like as you're gliding down something, you could use it to roll down with it. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yes. And then it's actually absolutely the James Cameron dream of aliens like being realized.
Right, because
Like they
even in that
are,
one, it's very clunky how she's walking around with it, you
but
know?
like, like that's exactly it is we would need something like this to enhance ourselves. And this is like a really interesting practical way that they do that both like in terms of like the costume design, but also like the practicality of like the evolution of humans trying to keep up with something really, really advanced would probably be pretty clunky in its inception. And so there is something kind of cool about how like they're just welding these pieces of metal together and hoping these suits don't just like snap people's backs.
And I just love, like, how glib Tom Cruise is at the beginning, and it just completely gets shattered when he realizes, like, he's gonna be the one in the suit now,
Yeah.
Like, he's perfectly fine, like, I think it makes, like, him dying all those times kind of seem not justified, but, like, you kind of live with that because he's just, he's just a publicist on the outside, he doesn't he's not aware of the people dying on the battlefield,
No,
so
no. Yeah, he probably did ROTC to get like a benefit in college, not because
Yep.
he really cared about it.
Yeah, he learned real
um
quick.
yeah, yes. All right, that takes us to our next segment called Death Proof.
If he dies, he dies.
Where we take a look at the movie's body count and see who bit the dust the hardest. What do you got?
All right. I really like the first time he tries to save the big guy and then dies immediately. That's one of the best ones because, he's like, I've got this power. And it's like, you see him thinking like, okay, I can really make a difference. And it's like, meh,
Or like
maybe.
the time when he's like, "Behind you!" and then he just turns around and still dies.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I just like kind of love the comedy of that death. That's such a fun one. I love when he tries to save Emily Blunt for the first time and it also ends up killing him and she just steals his batteries and he's like,
Oh,
"Are you
yeah.
stealing?" And you know what I mean? She's like, "I don't have any time to care about
Yeah,
this. I'm just like
exactly. I don't
here."
know who you are, bro, like, you're nothing to me.
Right. I'm in the middle of something right now. And I think my favorite though is when he is first trying to roll under the truck to escape and he dies
Oh, man,
accidentally.
I
I
love
think
that one
yeah,
too.
all the accidental comedic deaths really do it for me in this one because we're at war. This is a big battle that's happening. So of course I expect, cool deaths and deaths that have to happen. They're inevitable here, but I think that's why I like the funny ones so much.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of the same ones. I'll add to, like, one of the funny ones is that I like is when they're training and, Emily Blunt keeps killing him again and again, and he's, like, just pleading with her,
Yeah.
like,
What?
like, at first, he's like, "My back is broken, I can only feel my lips," and no hesitation, and then he starts bargaining with her, like, "It's just my leg, I think I'll be fine," and they kind of reuse the same shot of her face, like, doing it. It's just, like, because it's just, like, all cold,
Yes.
all business, we don't have time to be worrying about these injuries.
It's true. She's consistent. She is very consistent in this.
Um, yeah, I really do love that rolling one too. I definitely had that one,
So
where he's, like,
funny.
rolling out because he's, like, trying to time perfectly how to, get under that and escape the push-ups.
Right.
Uh,
Right. It just feels more real. Like it
yeah.
feels like when we see an action movie, how are these guys so good at perfectly timing rolling under moving vehicles? It's
Yeah, they
like they
probably would
probably
die.
wouldn't be. Yeah.
Yeah, they probably would die, like James Bond, he's got a lot of plot armor in these movies. And so
Yes.
I guess my number one, like, we kind of already touched it, but it's, like, just the first time you see Tom Cruise die, it's still very powerful and
Yes.
something you don't ever see in his movies, it's not like, Harrison Ford kinda killing off all his old characters now, like,
Right.
where I'm kinda used to it now when he's in a new movie.
We're like, oh, I guess he's gonna die in this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if he's bringing back any of his old movies, but Tom Cruise, he's the hero. He doesn't die in these movies, so seeing that for the first time, I love how they set it up where, he's kind of trying to be quiet. He's, like, kind of immobilized, then he sees the aliens talking to each other in their language or whatever. One of them spots him, and then he sees the claymore, like, next to him, and, which he saw one of the guys beforehand have, and
Yep.
then uses it, and then just like you said, like, you see all the black and blue goo kind of just eat his face up and
So cool.
his eyes turning black, and it is CGI heavy, but I don't think it takes away from like just the effect of that scene, and that's what really sets like the whole thing into motion. So I think that's like why it's one of the best.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. Which takes us to our next segment called Exit Wounds.
Come on, don't bullshit me.
This is where we'll take a look at the film's imperfections and decide whether they are fatal hits or just minor flesh wounds. All right, what do you got for your plot holes?
I don't have a ton. I mean, like when you're dealing with kind of not time travel, but just like it's like there's always some logic things that you can ask, like how many times has he been in this to know the guy's like second grade teacher's name?
Right, he
It's
must have
like
been in it.
very specific. I mean, that's the same thing in Groundhog Day too, though, where he like is a master at piano. It's like how many times would you need to die for that, or
In
like
order to take up piano at a
for,
late age, right?
for the day. I guess I just had like a simple one. Like, I do you think the Full Metal Bitch nickname is really good? I thought that was kind of lazy. Like, they
Yeah,
clearly wanted to be like this is like Full Metal Jacket, and then they were just like, what about Full Metal Bitch? And I was like, I don't really
that's a
think
good
that
point.
doesn't really roll off the tongue.
Yeah,
And so what's the what is it, the Queen of Verdun or whatever, the other one that they had?
the
The
angel of
Angel of
Verdun.
Verdun. That's
Nah,
now that's a nickname. Like that's a better one than at least better than Full Metal Bitch, but they had trouble with the nicknames, I guess we'll just say.
yeah, trying to figure out how to turn her into a brand is a really interesting like sub piece of this story.
Mhm. Um yeah, I don't know. Did you have any other ones?
I mean, the only thing is I just don't know why Brendan Gleeson wants so badly to get Tom Cruise killed. Like
Yeah.
when he's like, "You're going on this beach, you're like getting all these things,"
Did he
and the
sleep
fact that
with
you
his
don't want to
daughter or
do it.
something? Or like there's gotta be
Exactly.
some
Yeah,
personal
like
vendetta or
you
something.
understandably would have a hesitance if you're a media person in the military, and this dude is like so offended that he's like, "I'm actually gonna now lie and tell them that you're a deserter and all kinds of shit." Like, just
Yeah.
that to me is like pretty extreme. That like I'm not really sure why he is so mad at Tom Cruise.
That's a good point. Especially because like I guess like the guise of it or like his reasoning is like you're gonna record on the ground, but like he doesn't have a camera, he's not recording, like
He's
so
got a
it
crew.
just seems like he just wants to kill him, like for whatever reason.
Yes. Yeah.
uh
So I mean, they had to get him there somehow, but it does seem a little hard, a little heavy-handed.
yeah, I guess the only other nitpick I had, and I remember this like as when I saw this in the theater, it was the same thing and on Blu-ray, maybe with a 4K it will get better, but like the third act, I think still have some issues with it. It comes together like pretty fast, and it's just how dark it is. It just I remember in the theater
It is
being
pretty
like I
dark.
can't
Yeah.
really see a lot, especially because like the aliens they have some light, but they're mostly black.
Yeah.
So it's like it made it very hard
They
to.
move really fast.
So that's something that I still kind of brush up against. Still think it's awesome, like how Tom Cruise um, sets the bombs or whatever as he's underwater. Like they think they got him or whatever, and he just pulls the pins out like in your face, has like a last goodbye.
So
So
awesome.
it still works all together, but yeah, it's not the best, I would say.
Right, for sure, for sure. But yeah, we can suspend enough belief to enjoy this one because definitely doesn't have gaping plot holes like some other movies might.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right, cool. So that takes us to our next segment called More Firepower.
Okay, so what do you need besides a miracle?
Guns. Lots of guns.
Yes, in this segment, we pick between our favorite stars, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sly Stallone, or Keanu Reeves to determine who would bring the most heat to this movie if they were in the cast. What do you
Honestly,
think?
I think this is a hard one. I'm not sure who I would have added, but I could stand to see, like maybe Sly Stallone here as like another person that is trying to maybe motivate. You got like Bill Paxton being the sort of like dick motivator, and it would have been fun to have Stallone be like, "Come on, what you guys are strong enough?" Something like that maybe. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I do think this is an interesting one because I feel like even though it has an action star who's smooth and sleek like Tom Cruise, it still packs a lot of action. What
yeah.
about you?
I guess yeah, I would pick Stallone too somewhere in, but like it's hard because I don't want him to be Bill Paxton. That's the only really role I could see
Same.
replacing with any of these guys. And I
Right.
just don't think Sly is equipped to handle the whole, combat is the great redeemer. It's just you don't want to put that on him, so
No.
it's tough. But I guess um something like that, or maybe like as the Brendan Gleeson like general part,
Could have
maybe one of
been.
those guys maybe it could be Sly. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our last segment, Game Over, man.
What a picture.
Good picture. Yeah.
That is so much fun. I love that stuff, the killing.
A lot of killing.
In this final segment, we will rate the film out of 5 Omegas. All right, what do you give it?
I'm gonna go 4 Omegas. Um, I this one is like very well regarded, and I agree, but I don't have it as high as some other people. But there's still a lot that works for it that talked about with Emily Blunt, Tom Cruise, their chemistry, the Groundhog Day element of it kind of makes it stand out from other sci-fi films like this. And then the Doug Liman piece of it too, I think, really makes it work too altogether. So for all those reasons, I'm going to give it 4 Omega.
Very, very accurate. Or I guess like I'll say fair, like you always say when I
Yeah.
give something a hard, a fair rating.
Yeah.
But I think I go 4 here too, just because for a lot of the same things you're saying, but like it's just so enjoyable. It's so good to return to. It is a unique story, even though obviously we know of Groundhog Day. It's just sort of doing it this way, doing it with this style. All that stuff just really makes it stand out as like a great movie to revisit. And again, like a great movie in Tom Cruise's career that when you're like, I want the range, but I still want the fun and the action. This is such a good one to return to. Everything is, just like even though I've seen it before, there are still pieces I can't always remember. So I love rewatching and being reminded of that because there's still things that I can't just guess, even though I've been to the same spaces over and over again. And I kind of love that about this.
Yeah, this one and Collateral, I think, are like a nice double feature of like this is Tom Cruise in a new light, like Tom Cruise in a light that you've never seen him before.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Looking for the version of him that we all know he's capable of and we should value more, but we don't get to see as much.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, to go back to kind of like '04 and 2014 is that like he maybe every 10 years he makes a movie like this for us. Maybe that's
That
what
would
it
mean
is.
this year he's got to come out with something. I don't know.
I guess maybe Dead Reckoning Part 2, or are they not calling it Part 2 anymore? But
I don't even know.
it
Yeah.
could be. Maybe Maverick is like too early, but I feel like Maverick is a good version of
It's a good
one of
middle
these
ground.
types of movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I think that about wraps it up for us. Let's remind the people where they can find us.
Get your fix and follow the show at We Stay Buff on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and Twitch at The Buffs. Follow me on all the socials at Misfit_minded and my website, misfitminded.com.
Take us for a ride and subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And please leave a positive review. 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. And you can follow me personally on all the socials at It's Me, Shani B.
Next week, we'll be covering Leon the Professional. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time for another edition of Movie Buffs. But until then,
On your feet, maggots!